Hello and welcome to Metaverse Live, this wonderful day, night, morning, whatever you like to call it, and wherever you are, welcome. Today we have our usual stalwarts, Mal Burns writer. Hi Mal.
Hi, it is good to be back.
And Sigmund Learminster. How are you, Siggy?
I'm just fine, glad to be back again this week and enjoying some warm weather eventually over here in the US.
I see. He's just trying to rub it in, folks, because here in the UK, as we were telling our guests this evening, it has been freezing, and we have had just about 8 hours of warm weather, and that's been it for the entire year. Anyway, I'm coming now to our guests, and I'd first like to introduce Sandor Zabelin of Book Island Events. Hi, Sandor.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I'm happy to be here representing the island, that's for sure.
That's great. We'll be talking to you soon about that. And Irish Gent, who's president and CEO. Now, is that of the America's Cup Irish, or America's Cup in SL?
Well, I wouldn't be a self-proclaimed SL America's Cup president CEO. No, actually, that's for the yacht club. It's the Irish Artisan Yacht Club that I'm the president and CEO of. But yeah, I'm kind of spearheading our efforts in Second Life too. I'll explain that later. But it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I should say that we're hovering over the Irish tropical escapes. Is this your cinema?
Yes, it is, and thank you for having it here. It's a beautiful day for this.
That's very pretty, Sim. Okay, I'm going to, you know what our format is, generally speaking. We pick a subject out of the week, and I pick one of our panelists. I was going to call them all sorts of things then, but I've decided to keep myself to panelists. Anyway, it's Sigmund Learminster, and he is here to talk about SL9B, and then we'll all be coming with the chat afterwards. Thank you, Sigmund. Please take it away.
Well, actually, I should tell the people who are watching this show and listening to this show that the actual docket that I got was a piece of paper that said to discuss the Linden Labs official position. Well, actually, what it turns out to be is not really much of an official position whatsoever. And in fact, the thing that had most people upset about this year's celebrations was that Linden Lab are taking very much a hands-off policy on this one. It started with their first announcement in their blog where they promptly whooped everything up as being a wonderful event and saying that this was marking the spirit of community, etc., etc. But what that basically means is they were not going to be really involved in this. So, of course, as we can expect, there was a lot of brouhaha on the blogs, on the bulletin boards, a lot of discussion on what was happening. And again, as you can expect, Linden Lab promptly opened their mouth and put their own foot in it by all accounts here. But then again, you know, some of those comments come back. That's 90% of people are sort of offended and disgusted, and then there are others who say, well, you know, this is just another example of knocking Linden Labs. If they do something, they get knocked because either they didn't do it right or they didn't do it early enough, and then when they don't do something, they get knocked for not doing it. So whatever was going to happen here, something terrible was in the offing, whatever. However, what is interesting is that, of course, people have started to respond to this, and I think what we'll be talking about very shortly is how the community may well be taking some action here. And particularly notably since that time, someone who we're pretty familiar with here, Sapphire Widdershins, has put together what might be called the centralized or the unofficial hub for the birthday celebrations. And actually now you can go and find information about planning that's now going ahead organized basically by Safir and the folks at Prim Perfect. And now I think we're going to see like a consortium of people getting together to put something that will not be Linden sponsored. So the bad news in one sense was that people were finding that there wasn't an official response, but the truth is that what we may well see is something interesting coming out of this in terms of a true community event, in that the community itself is going to have to do something about this. So that's where we are at the moment, I think. There is community events happening, and we're going to see what's going to happen here. And I think if you go to sl9b.wordpress.com, you can find a lot about what's happening there. So over to the rest of the folks. What are people thinking about this event, and what's going to happen? Mal, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll give you a bit of an update there, in fact.
Good.
You're right, I had Safir and Diane Renoir from, who's one of the main volunteers who've been behind it for years, on a show about a week ago on the webcast thing. And it's the old crew of volunteers who've done it just about every year, for Linden Lab, of course, who are now volunteering to do it as a community project without Linden's involvement. I think they're called Dreamland Estates or something. They're a major land estate sort of company in Second Life. Have actually donated 10 Sims. And what is actually amazing is another anonymous donor coughed up another 6 last week. And today I heard that yet another anonymous donor has coughed up another 4. So we're already at 20 Sims. So I think at this rate we're going to have more Sims than Linden ever offered themselves anyway.
I think you're right. Yeah, it's actually sounded like it could be an even bigger event without Linden Lab's help.
Exactly. I think the volunteers all feel they have the kind of authority. They're not going to have to run to Linden Labs every half hour to check that what's happening is okay. They're going to have a great deal more autonomy. But you're right. If people go to the website, it is really a bit close to the time. I mean, this actually comes up in June. So I won't say everything's in a rush, but in terms of people wanting to apply for exhibition space and to deliver talks in the auditoriums and things like that, they are very keen to hear from people as soon as possible, because obviously they've got to schedule all this and lay it out, and they've got rather little time on that side of it before the builds start. So if anybody or any of our viewers are actually interested in partaking in this wonderful community emphasis event, to get in touch with that website, and you'll find all the forms to fill in and other information there.
Okay, I'd like to come in here. I'd like to know what Irish and Sandor think of this. I mean, did you partake, Sandor, for example, did you partake ever in any of the SL birthday things, or did you visit or anything like that?
Being the events manager on Book Island, we have 9 events every week regularly, and I spend over 30 hours doing that. I wish I had more time to get out to other Sims. I just really don't in my schedule. I'm a working writer also, so I have some real life duties, and I just don't get out that much, so I can't comment.
Okay, what about you, Irish?
Well, I'm a very active person in real life. I travel most of my work day. I'm currently in Newport, Rhode Island as we speak, my home being in Southern California. So I do have been quite often throughout the week to attend events, and I love what's happening now recently. As far as our Sims here, we try to have quite a few music events, live music events and such, but just in general, I'm not the easiest guy to get a hold of, but I try to be.
Well, so we're talking to 2 people from the community here, Mal and Sigmund, and I'm just interested in knowing that Linden Labs originally asked everybody to do events on their own Sims, and that they would broadcast, so they would basically advertise them and get along to them and review them and that kind of thing, didn't they, Siggy?
That's right, and as far as I'm aware, you can still do that. You can send information, and they'll be posting these things in the upcoming events. So, if people want to take part from their own sim, we're all free to do that.
I think it's quite interesting that we're kind of reverting to the status quo. There's a need to revert to the status quo, isn't there? To repeat what has been happening in the years before and not to make a move into something new, Mal.
Yeah. I think the main concern was that Linden Labs had let the community down, and that there was going to be no central focus for the birthday party. So what has happened here with what we were just announcing is that the community has come together and said, right, well, we'll just do it ourselves. But they've clearly chosen the same model that Linden Labs have operated on previously. It could actually turn out to be very good. You could have a central focus, as we've always had, and there could be all these other events going on, side by side. There could be too much to choose from almost. I think it may, I think there will be a different flavour to this year's, simply because the controlling arm of Linden's will not be there. I mean, hopefully we're not getting any silly things like, remember Linden Labs, they censored, what's the name, Rose Boszewski's things. I don't see any of that stuff happening because it's no longer any concern of Linden's, as it were. Much so I would have thought their embarrassment. So I think it will have... much more of a party feel on behalf of the residents rather than, something that is engineered and put on by Linden Labs in the background. Is there
a theme to this year at all?
The theme actually is community. Just like that. No more life on Mars or whatever the other asteroids or whatever we had previously. This one is just called, the theme is just called community, which it figures really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm really fascinated to see.
Tell me this: if people are holding their own gigs on their own sims, how are they going to advertise? And is Linden Labs going to pick it up and run with it?
I honestly don't know.
Sorry, I thought I was asking Siggy.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's okay. And again, going back to the Second Life home site, if you go there, the Linden Lab are asking for people to send them information about your events, and I think they have a click-through to say this is what's happening, and these will become part of the the general Linden distribution of what's going on in Second Life system. So you will be able to do that, but at the same time, I think we'll see this being that information will be there. But then the development by the folks at Dream, the words will come to us, the estates there. Yeah. We'll see that.
You said, was it
Dream something?
Yeah.
Dream Seeker, I think.
Dream Seeker. Okay, that may well be. I'm having trouble with dreams today. I'm sure that's the case. But I think that that's probably going to get a lot of push through and I say this again, community. Through the blogs, through the forums that are there. If you go out, the interesting thing is, we do this all the time. Where do we get our information about what's going on? If it's not in world, I'm typically skipping through the blogs and I'm skipping through the forums to see what's happening. Yeah. And there's a lot of chatter going on there. So I think that's another area where people will be able to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what else you can do. So it will be an interesting experiment to see how well this does without Linden backing. Or I should say, without Linden offering some free space for a period of time. So we shall see what happens.
Could I pop a question in here?
Sure.
I'm events manager on Book Island, and this is the first time I'm hearing anything about any of this, and I'm trying to, there is that recent bug where you're capped at 25 or something, whether it's IM, group notice, or marketplace purchase or something. But is there a reason I haven't even caught wind of this, or what?
Well, I would answer that Linden Labs themselves announced the birthday in a very subdued way, principally because they weren't going to provide the Sims. They just said, well, we want to know what you're doing, what you want to do to celebrate it, and we'll put it on Destination Guide. What we've been talking about, the residents taking over a birthday build, so to speak, is actually relatively new, a couple of weeks, and I would say that the news has come out through Second Life media like us, and also printed blogs, as Siggy mentioned. Print Perfect, for example, is a lifestyle magazine. They've publicised it, and the word gets around. I think it's sort of fairly viral. I personally, like Sigmund, tend to read a lot of stuff on the web, and most of the information I get has been coming from outside Second Life itself, not the in-world channels. But I imagine that will change near the day.
I think it's something, isn't it, that this is begging for some kind of centralisation of events, and presumably all this stuff is going to go up on the events board, is it, on the Linden Lab events board?
I don't want to be rude about Linden Labs, but I wonder if they've actually cottoned on yet to the fact there is another birthday festival going to be going on in World. I've certainly seen no real mention of it on any of the lab blogs or anything like that. They still seem to be concerned with finding people that are holding stuff on their Sims, whereas this will be a they have to put it on the Destination Guide, even if they're not organising it. You can't imagine having the birthday party and nothing on the login screen or anything like that.
No, that's not quite what I meant, Mal. Actually, what I meant was, is this going to be divisive at all from the people who are holding it on their blogs and holding it on their Sims and thinking, it's going to be picked up by Linden Labs and given some exposure, and from the sort of community, the erstwhile community team of the SL birthdays getting together and doing their thing. Is that going to, are they going to pick up the other Sims as well? Where people are having their own gigs?
Well, I'm pretty sure the central Sims, where the main party is going to be, will provide links to other events going on. That's actually always been the way. You've had your little exhibition space, but sometimes you give a teleport outside the Sims to something you need more space to do. But you asked, actually, I think crucially you asked too, so if it's going to be divisive, and I don't think anybody can really know. It is possible that Linden Labs will, advertise individual events that they've been told about, and ignore this other one. But as I say, there's the Doc Gascoigne, the Diane Renoir, and hundreds of other volunteers who've put this together every year for the last however many years it's been. And they've got the contacts, they've got the networks, they know how to do this. They've been doing it for years. They're just not doing it as Linden's this time. So, I don't think they're, working blindly. There'll always be people who miss it, actually. People log in and, you mean Second Life's having a birthday party? I didn't know that, So, not everybody's going to know about it, but I'm fairly confident that, most of the community is going to know about it, because of the sheer number of people involved and their networks and those people's networks. By the time it happens, everybody's going to know.
Yeah, okay, well, I think we've covered that one. We've done our 20 minutes on it, and I think that's quite enough. I'm going to bring in Sandor, who is indeed the Book Island events manager. Now, Sandor, talk to us about what's happening on Book Island at the moment, because indeed you are having an event, aren't you?
Well, yeah, we're having a series of events. We're continuing our normal 9 events a week, which if you want me to, I could tell you about. We have them every week. But we've added a number of events all month of May. We have 5 treasure hunts going on. And if you want to take a tour of the island, we have marvelously large white convertible limousines that you can take a tour of the island all month long. And those are ongoing. But this past Saturday, we kicked off our intense week of 5th anniversary celebrations with Izzy Upsilon, who's a DJ. He's done a number of dances for us, and you never schedule anything after Izzy because he went for nearly 5 hours, so we had a wonderfully long dance. And this tomorrow, Wednesday, we're going to have a live writing exhibition. Ayana O will take a few prompts from the audience, then she will proceed to write a story live in text chat. That's going to be exciting. And then we're going to have another dance with Chandra Deed, a fantastic singer. Then this coming Saturday, we will have a dance with two singers, Brendan Shorland, who's pretty well known around Second Life, and from the UK, and also Lana Chrome. So we have this intense week of dances and fun, all of it for Book Island being here for 5 years now.
Now, do you want to tell us something about Book Island itself? We've had Selena Green on before on NBC News and on various panels and whatever, but we haven't spoken with her for a little while now, actually, because we've been going on different journeys somewhere. But where is Book Island up to now?
Well, as far as Selena, she has a 2.5-year-old toddler now, so she's not there a lot, with the 2.5-year-old to deal with. But Art and Tripsa, our general manager, and I'm the events manager. We've worked hard on this 5th anniversary stuff. But Book Island itself, it now has 60 shops, and it's called Book Island. So there are shops of writers, editors, publishers, editors, book designers, artists. So we have a wide variety of people all involved in the literary scene that have shops on the island. And then we have 3 major venues, our library, our beach venue, and the Writer's Block Cafe, where people, even when there aren't events, people hang out at the Writer's Block a lot.
Presumably they're trying to get rid of their writer's block. I mean, is Book Island someplace, come on boys, is Book Island someplace that I can send this lot to get rid of their writer's block?
Absolutely, absolutely. There are 2 events in specific. Mondays, June Fairmore, sometimes known as June Stormcrow, has an event called Writer's Wave, and you get a prompt, you write for 20 minutes, whatever you're moved to write, and everyone discusses it. And a lot of people say that really helps them overcome their writer's block. And then on Wednesdays at 11 a.m., we have Writer's Chat. And, nearly every session of Writer's Chat, we have someone bringing a problem they have in writing. All aspects of it, from first draft to publishing. And the rest of the group are marvelous because that person invariably gets a tremendous amount of help from the group, whatever question they bring to the chat.
You said that you are a writer in RL here. I mean, do you find, was this a natural move for you to go to Book Island?
Well, like I think a lot of people in Second Life, you often can't remember what made you end up someplace. You don't remember how you got there. But I came into Second Life 5 years ago. I spent a year going to blues clubs, jazz clubs, hanging out, exploring. Then I took a year off because of real-life crises. But when I came back, I was in a more writerly mood, and I plugged in books, and I found Book Island, and I rented a shop right away. I was getting ready to write a book. I did a lot of pre-publication promotion with the island, and it's very good for that too. Any writers who want to promote themselves in Second Life, and that is, by the way, something I think a lot of writers don't even know they can do. You can have a huge book launch party that might cost you $10, okay, in Second Life. So a lot of opportunities, and I've just stuck with Book Island. I was just an independent for a while, and then Selena, who's in the UK, and Arton, who's in Australia, they were finding they couldn't either be at events or couldn't start new events because of time differences. Oh, I'm in the middle. I'm in the U.S., and they came to me one day and they said, "Hey, could you help us out?" And I said, "Well, sure, let's do it." So.
You did. Sigmund, I'm going to bring you in here because I know you're our most literary chap on the team, I reckon.
Actually, yes, I've read 2 books, so that's at least one than most everybody else on the team.
One more than I have, yes.
And it had very small pictures in it as well, I have to say. Sandor, one of the things I was curious about is that you said you have folks come along and it helps them to get past their block. Do you have, or does Book Island have, do you have a blog site or a website where people can actually take what they've created and share it with everybody else?
Not yet. That is in the works, by the way.
Okay.
You know, in 5 years, and I did see one of the videos you did do so with Selena years ago, but, you know, the changes that occur and the upheavals and everything that happens in Second Life, we have about a year now of steady growth with community activity increasing, you know, 9 events a week, and we're maintaining that. We're not adding events, although we did for the 5th anniversary, so I'm barely awake right now. But we are seriously consulting about a web presence for Book Island. There is one particular event we have twice a week called Global Peace Chat, and that's what's going to drive us, I think, to the web, because it's a group that runs itself. I moderate it, but it kind of plans for itself what it wants to do. And one of the first things they said was, well, we want to have a web presence. We want to go outside Second Life. So we're heading in that direction. Yep.
Yeah, because it sounds to me, you know, an excellent, as you say, it's the one opportunity is to come in and, you know, work your way through any block, but then to be able to follow through with saying, and here's how it happened, and here's what I did. I suspect that could be sort of very validating for the folks who are coming to your island.
Well, it is. And, you know, another thing Arten Tripsa, our manager, is going to be affecting very soon is various kiosks or boards around the island for various events where people can contribute, you know, put a note card in, put an SL URL or a website address, and have it be like a data bank for that event or for that particular aspect of writing. So we're going to be implementing that too, where people, like you say, can give feedback and share with each other.
So that'll be something for us to keep our ears open, because, again, once that's up and running, it'll be great to talk to you again and you know, go back and look at how that develops, because if, as you say, this could be very significant for people. I love that idea.
For the benefit of our viewers, actually, I take it the nature of Book Island is firstly it's a meeting place for writers, so it's a community of writers for writers. But presumably anybody watching, any of our viewers who are aspiring authors and things like that, I presume you're anxious to hear from them as well.
Oh yes, in fact, you know, when I mentioned the kinds of shops we have. Well, first let me say that we want readers coming there. For instance, our open mic on Sundays, it's as much for readers to come and listen to people read their writing as it is for the writers to read. We have a readers chat on Saturdays, which is a very popular event. There's no set book. People just come and talk about any old book they want, ones they love, ones they hate. We have a rousing discussion all around reading, you know, in and of itself. And also we don't have events right now that specialize for editors or, you know, book cover designers. We may in the future, I don't know, but we certainly have a lot of writers. A lot of people are editors. Our owner, Selena Green, is a former publisher in the UK. And we have a lot of artists who come also, just for cross-artistic fertilization.
Yes.
I was going to add there, I do like that notion of using a virtual world to promote reading. And I say that because typically we think of the internet as a place where people go not to read or to play games or to just surf and, that whole virtual world thing of escaping. But the fact that you can also use it to do something else, which is to actually say, no, reading is still something we need to do, something that we have to do, and something that's worth doing. And again, that appeals to me as well, I've got to say.
Well, it's interesting being events manager, and I'm at all the events, even if I don't facilitate them all. But so many people, well, first let me say there are a number of literary sims. There's Milkwood, there's Cookie Island, Bookstacks, there's a number of literary sims. But so many people will show up at an event and say, wow, I had no idea.
Oh, we seem to have
lost him.
Yeah, I think temporarily we've lost the microphone. Maybe we'll come back to him.
Oh,
yeah, you're back.
Was I not there? Oh.
Only for a split second you were not there, Sandor. I'm going to bring James in because I want to know, James, you've told me a little bit about what you do, and I'm just saying, how does that fit? I mean, how does writing or books or publishing fit with your lifestyle?
You're referring to me, James, or the Irish James?
Yep.
The Irish Gent.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do have a fictitious name called an Irish Gent. Oh, I absolutely love it. I'm a closet writer myself, so not a ghost writer, but a closet writer. I attended university here in the States, and one of my most pleasurable courses was creative writing. So I love what you're doing there, Alexandra, and I'd love to be part of the writing group and the writer's block group. I think it'd be a wonderful thing to share with my community because we are artisans in our own right, but also we enjoy the settling community at Tropical Sim. So I love what you're doing. I'm going to be very active in seeking out ways of connecting what we do. So,
well, I'll tell you, James, our general manager, Art and Trips, she's an author also, but considering your sim and what I've heard, she has a wonderful sailboat anchored off Book Island. So you may want to come see her sailboat, take a ride someday.
Oh, I would love that, yes. Actually, we have quite a few sims now. I currently own 9 sims, and I have an affiliation with Amy Ferguson, which also has 9. Then we're adjoined to the Bonaire Estates. And those that know Frolic will know that he's also here. So we have a large sailing community, but also we have an outreach to the Blake Sea. We have a kind of reciprocal privilege relationship with the owners of the Blake Sea, or I should say women's own it, but those that are kind of on the peripheral. But I would love to come out and spend some time with the owner of your sims as well as share information. I think it'd be a great way to extend community.
Okay, we're having a little bit of sound trouble there, so I'm going to stay with Sandor for a while. Sandor, I mean, do you do outreach work from Book Island onto other islands or sims, or do you ever get invited as a group of writers to come and read your work? In fact, I'm going to invite you. I'm going to invite you to come and read your work up at Metaverse Satellite, which we're opening in the next few weeks, so on the 1st of June, but I'm not going to suggest that date necessarily, but I think come along and start doing open mics up there. We'd be delighted to have you, and it's a natural segue for us too.
Well, that's a wonderful invitation. And as far as outreach again, the past year, well, I've been events manager for about 2 years, but when I first started, I was just overseeing what was happening, and I've become a little more proactive in, making events happen. But we're at a steady phase now, but we are going to be moving forward, and outreach is important. One thing we do, though, Art and our manager and I, every Monday at 6 p.m. Second Lifetime, we go over to Heronshire, which is one of the tiny Sims, and they have a poetry slam. And if you've never been to a tiny poetry slam, it's one of the most enchanting events you can go to. But we regularly go over there, and I'll write some poetry, and we'll have a good time. But that again is something that we're looking forward to, is trying to export aspects of what we do, to other Sims.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Now, how long is your event on for? When does it close? I mean, the 5th anniversary celebration.
Well, the last day of May will be the last day that you can do the 5 treasure hunts. The limo tour, we like it so much, we're going to have the limo tour stay beyond May, so you can come anytime and take a tour in a huge white convertible limo. The last dance will be Saturday, this coming Saturday, at 2 p.m. on through about 4:30. So that'll be the last, explicitly intensive fun event in the 5th anniversary.
Okay, Sandor, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for telling us about it. We're going to come on to Irish Gent now, because Irish Gent is planning something really quite, I think, unusual in Second Life. I don't mean that anything else is usual, but I think he's got a very ambitious project on. Do you want to tell us a bit about it, Irish Gent?
Oh, I'll give it the best try here as my Irish quip. Well, there's a big event being held. Can everyone hear me okay, first off, because I've had some mic problems?
Fine now. Yep.
Okay, great. There's this phenomenal event that's taking place starting June 23rd through July 1st in Newport, Rhode Island, which I am from. It's called the America's Cup Challenge. This is a 160-year-old event, international sail racing event that's probably the most recognized in world history. So growing up around the America's Cup, because it was held up to about 20 years ago in Newport, Rhode Island, and I was just a boy in a small little boat watching the America's Cup just fly right by me. So I have a strong, long history with the America's Cup, and that's part of the reason why I'm back today. So on to what I'm trying to accomplish. I am in discussions with the committee chair of the America's Cup races here in Newport. His name is Brad Reed, and I'm trying to convince him to use the transponders on the ACAs, the American Cup boats themselves, and pick up on those locations so I could put the simulated ACA, corresponding ACA boat here in Second Life to mirror each move, to parallel and watch the America's Cup in Second Life. So it's quite an endeavor. First, I have to get the technical folks to approve it, and secondly, to see if I can grab some people to donate some Sims. So that's the challenge at hand. I have till June 23rd. I have a lot of folks to talk with between now and then, but that's where my heart is, and with good luck to the Irish, as well as good donations from some, we can make this happen. It's unprecedented. It hasn't been done in Real Life or in Second Life as yet. So hopefully this will work out fine.
So what sort of reaction have you been getting from Second Life?
Second Life, I think we're a distant stare in a sense, because they feel that it's going to be quite a technical challenge. But I've been encountered with even higher obstacles. But yeah, and those that are completely fascinated from the sailing community. Actually, one of our Second Life members is a part of the Oracle racing team. So we have a very strong, alive, thriving racing and sailing community in Second Life, quite a large community, in fact. So I get applause from some, question marks from others, but I think all in all, this might just come through.
That's fantastic. So I was going to ask you, why is sailing so popular in Second Life, of all places?
Well, that's a very good question. I think in the early stages, and this goes back quite a few years before, because I'm relatively young to Second Life, the Lindens donated quite a large number of sims for testing purposes, and when they got physics, they started being able to move across the sims, and they created boats, they created motorboats, sailboats, etc. So why is it taken off like it has? Those that have experienced real-life sailing, that enjoy Second Life, this is the perfect world, because now you can sail all day without being fatigued, without getting wet, without getting cold. So it's a natural fit for sailors like myself. So that's one side of it. Then there's the enthusiasts, those that always wanted to go into that world but not experience what I just shared with you. That's a good introduction. And it actually segues from Second Life into real life. Some have gotten their start from Second Life and quickly moved into real life.
Now, do you mean that you can actually learn to sail in Second Life? I've noticed everybody else is very quiet. Have you noticed that? I think it might be something to do with the fact that, you know, you get wet, you get cold, you have to do physical activity. So they've gone really, really quiet here.
Well, I think I prefer Second Life sailing to real world sailing, that's for sure. It is somewhat safer, I think, especially with me at the wheel. It's very, I think it's a very popular activity in world there. For another reason too, I remember at least one corporation back when the days when corporations tried to do things here, who actually used it for team building. They put lots of people in little teams in these boats, and they sort of go out as teams, but they actually used it in a sort of corporate setting for team building, so camaraderie and sort of stuff like that. So, you know, I think it's actually really kind of engaging. It's probably very similar to the airplane people, for want of a better word. You know, you load up your HUD and you get in your airplane, and you've got a whole simulation in front of you, and you can fly around in the sky. And I must admit, from my point of view, I don't like the airplanes at all. But I mean, going out on a yacht or something like that is great. You know, it's rather soothing and sort of very sociable, sort of tranquil activity.
Well, before we get bombed by various World War II aircraft, I'm just going to point out that the opinions expressed by Malvern's writer are not necessarily that of the programme.
Yes, indeed.
Well, so I was going to ask a question.
Do you like getting cold and wet?
I actually tolerate it because at the end of the day, when you're finished sailing, you come back to port, and you're cold, and you just walk into the clubhouse or around a nice open fire. There's nothing more soothing to say that I had a good sail that day. You probably came close to falling overboard several times, but you have a story to share. And if you live it real life, or even in Second Life, that story becomes even bigger and greater. You become more impassioned for life because you almost went overboard. You almost got to the point where no one could turn around and get you. So it really tests your limits, not only mentally, physically, but more importantly, yes, I want to stay dry, but I'm willing to take that risk and to tell the story.
I have to say, I come from a long line of sailors, and I still haven't found anybody willing to get in a boat with me to teach me how to do it. Sigmund, what about you?
Well, I was going to ask, you know, for the people who are watching this, who have never sailed in Second Life, and that probably includes me, and maybe I did try it once and failed miserably, but suppose people are watching this and say, now this sounds like a cool thing to try and do. What should they do, Irish? What are the steps they should do immediately when this show closes down? Where should they go, and what should they be doing?
I'd say give a reach out to me initially, and I'll be more than glad to kind of escort you and show you the ropes. In fact, they have a whole team. In fact, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, his name is Don Barathos. He is actually a real-life sailor on the America's Cup, and he's on the Oracle. So there's a gentleman like Don, there's Mark Twain, there's Nibber, there's a few other folks, Chad Ellis, which is Clay Ellis, that actually designs boats. you can go through me initially, and I can open up the sailing community to you, the boating community in general, and I'll be more than glad to do that. I mean, it's my pleasure and privilege, having been a sailor all of my life. In fact, I have some stories I could share with you individually, but for better use of time. But this is something that if you've never tried, you owe it to yourself to get one foot on the boat, and the second one will follow. And the experience is magical. And the way the Second Life has put this together, it's like being on that boat. The sounds, the wind, the movement is just amazing what they've done. So, I'm going to hand this over to you and say, this is a book for you, Alexander. This is a good tool for those that have never experienced this experience. To give it a try.
Well, you know what? I think it'd be wonderful for clearing writer's block out of somebody's head. But I do want to add this because I just got word from our general manager, Art and Tripsa. They're watching this show being streamed live now into Writer's Block Cafe on Book Island. So I'm sure she's listening intently to you. And I just want to say for folks that sail, you probably know about this, James, but her boat, she can get 5 other people on there as crew, and she can assign them jobs on the boat. I think that's awesome.
That's exactly what you do. The model one hull versus the catamarans, which are 2 hulls. You have assignments. I think with the ACA 33, which I have, America's Cup Association 33 length, you can have 5 people on that boat. So yeah, it's crazy, it's fun, and you can play with the wind direction, the seas, everything. You can make it so realistic that, my goodness, you'll be exhausted by the end of the race. But you'll have good stories.
You'll have to come over to Book Island and teach Art and some of your tricks, okay?
I'm trying to exhaust him.
I have a wealth of people that love it as well, and I'm more than glad to turn everyone on to this. But back to the project, I know that this is something that I've been doing this since I was 8. So, I breathe it, eat it, and breathe it. And I love sharing the message, and if I can get someone impassioned as I am, I've done my job. So feel free to reach out to me. Anyone that has questions, I'd be more than glad to answer them.
So come on, Irish. Mm-hmm. Tell us about what you really want to achieve by the end of the America's Cup.
I want to make some history here. I want to put Second Life in front of those that haven't seen Second Life. And that's my reach out to the real world. But more importantly, if I can make a few people's lives happier and expose them to a side of Second Life they've never seen, then I guess my job's well done. That's what I hope to achieve. Right. Thank you.
And what do you need for that to happen?
Oh, goodness. Well, let's see. This is still relatively new. It's in the infancy, and I have such little time to do this. Those that are willing to donate some time, some brain trust, I could use people that could do some... I need a good writer, for one. I'm a decent wordsmith in my own right, but clearly I only have a few hours in the day to do what I need done. But I'm looking at... I can probably get the Sims donated from Lake C. That's not a concern. I'm doing the front end work with Real Life committee chair here in Newport. So those that want to donate their time, their interest, their ear, please reach out to me. I'm sure I'll find something for you to do. Absolutely.
Where will they get hold of you?
Well, you have my my screen name here. With Irish Gent. And those that are serious, I'll be more than glad to give them my Skype information. But for now, let's start there. How's that sound?
Okay, so anybody who wants to get involved with this and putting the America's Cup sort of synchronously into Second Life, and being involved in a history-making attempt at this, I mean, who do you think will win?
Well, we're all hoping. I'm slightly partial to the Oracle team. I would love to see it come back. We had it. We won it after losing it for 20 years. And I was at the race when we lost it to to them. And let me tell you, it was my heart dropped after having it and hosting it here since 1930. Of course, I'm not that old, but you know, I definitely go back. It's been my blood for many years. But Larry Ellison he's the gentleman I want to once again. Let's keep it in the States. I would love it to have it here. Therefore, that's my hope.
Okay. Now I know that Sigmund has got a question for you. Irish.
Please, Sigmund.
Actually, I was going to say, trying to tie together the two strands that we have here, and a question to both you and to Sandor would be, are there any particular books that either one of you have read that you think we should read that would be inspiring for an aspiring sailor? What sort of books of the sea or books of sailing do you think would encourage, you read it and you think, well, this is good stuff. Have you any thoughts on that? I'm just curious.
I've got thoughts.
Oh. Go
The
ahead,
Tempest. The Tempest, William Shakespeare.
There you go. I have a book to recommend, but also, James, if you need a writer, come to our writers' chat on Wednesday at 11 a.m., and I'm sure somebody there will come on board with you. But I'd recommend actually a book called Song of the Sky by Guy Murchie. It's actually about being a navigator in an airplane, but his analogies all fit with sailing, and I happen to be an old sailor myself from the U.S. Navy, but I think a sailor could read Song of the Sky and draw all kinds of parallels with sailing on water.
That's a good one. I haven't read that one. I think there's one I could recommend to those that is a relatively dated book, but it's called The Lure of Sailing. It's by Everett A. Pearson. In fact, if you go through the pages, you'll actually see my boat. So, and that particular one is on page 65. So, those that are interested.
Everybody's frantically Googling now.
Yeah, I know, they're Googling it. Oh, that's crazy. No, I was actually fortunate, and I have a lot of stories, as you can imagine. And I sailed the small boats up to the tall ships. So, if anyone's seasoned and has a salt in their blood, that's me. But that'd be one I would recommend, clearly. And I'm sure there's quite a few of the Art of Sail. There's another one I can think of. But in general, start off with that one, and that'll be a good starting point.
Excellent.
Right, well, we're just about coming up to wrap up time, I'm afraid, and it's been really, really interesting tonight. I think all of my lot will agree with that. And if they don't, I'll talk to them later sternly. All right, we're going to take it away, and really it's just about hopes and desires, really, for what will happen next, and that will wrap it up. And I'll ask Malvern to take it away in a couple of sentences, please.
Right, well, I'm just making my summer resolutions here, and I think I shall have to, I haven't done this for a long while, but go out on a rowing boat. It's something, not quite sailing, but that's something I used to like doing. And I think if it's a nice day like it's been today, I shall take a good book with me. So, how's that for a bit of segue?
Marvelous.
Which book would you take?
Which book? Well, it won't be Moby Dick.
What about you, Sandor?
By the way, now Moby Dick is good to use as an anchor. I'm just glad I could be here today as a representative of Book Island. I urge folks to come if you can't make our Wednesday dance or Saturday dance. All the way to the end of May, you can go on 5 treasure hunts or take a wonderful tour in a huge white convertible limousine. I'm fascinated that I didn't know who else would be on the panel today. And being an old sailor myself, I'm so happy James was here and that we shared this time.
Thank you, Sandor. Okay, Sigmund.
Well, after listening to both our guests today, I know where I have to be going to visit next. And again, taking up the opportunity here to try some in-world sailing. Maybe I should. That's going to be on my list for my summer activities within Second Life. Of course, my real-life activities will probably involve not sailing but riding, as most of the folks know here. I'm an inveterate motorcycle rider, and I do like to get on the bike, toss a book into the back, and just drive off and sit around somewhere casually in the sunshine reading. So that'll be part of my real-life activities.
Thank you, Siggy. And now Irish, please.
Well, I'm inspired. I'm inspired in many ways. One, thank you for the opportunity to share a good part of my life and passion. But now, with that passion, I need the good skills and tools to memorialize it. And I'll be at that writer's block session. So I'm glad I had a chance to meet with everyone. And certainly, if you have any questions, I'll even give you my own personal tour of sailing, if you like. You can come with me on one of the America's Cup predecessors, because there's quite a few great designers out here, and there's one that I actually own. You can jump on board. We can go for a nice, pleasant sail. I'll make it nice and easy on you so you won't get cold or wet. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for inviting me this time.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think all agreed that it's been a very interesting evening. And I'm choosing my words carefully here because for me it's getting quite late and I've been on the road for weeks and I no longer know who or what or where I am. So I've been sailing the seas and I'm going to yo-ho-ho off for a bottle of rum. So thank you, everybody. Metaverse Live, another one in 2 weeks' time. And I can't say who our guest is. I mean, I know who I'm asked and invited, and it'll probably just be one guest, and I would love you to stay tuned. So thank you so much to Sandor Zabelin and to Irish Gent. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us today. And it's good night from all of us. Say good night, folks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
We'll
night.
see you all in 2 weeks' time.